My tights had already slipped down to my ankles. When it dawned on me, I couldn't stop. Not a drop of alcohol, not a drop of drugs, not even fear. I just stood there, feeling my heart pounding. My lips were slightly parted, my skin burning, and behind me, Igor, my best friend's father, knelt down and whispered, "Let me take care of you." He was twice my age. He was a drunkard. I'd known him since we were teenagers. He'd grilled us shashlik at their dacha outside of Kiev when we'd spend the night at Alinka's, and bought us pizza when we'd cried over our school dramas. But that night, in his office with the door tightly closed, the tart scent of his expensive perfume hung in the air. He touched me as if I weren't his daughter's best friend. He touched me as if I belonged to him, and the moment his tongue slid down my inner thigh, I knew the line had been crossed. There was no turning back, but I never imagined that this would become a service that would change my life and break my heart. Before I dive into this complicated story, I want to thank everyone who subscribed to this channel. Your support means more to me than you know. And to all our new and old viewers who haven't yet hit that subscribe button, what are you waiting for? That click is the energy that fuels this space and keeps the stories flowing. Your likes, reposts, and comments are incredibly important, so feel free to share your thoughts in the comments section below. Let's build this community together. And now, back to how I ended up half naked in the house of a man I thought would never betray my own friend. My name is Katya. I was 23 when it happened. I dropped out of medical college in Zhytomyr, unable to afford it, and the constant pressure to pretend everything was under control became unbearable. I worked double shifts at a diner near the Kyiv-Chop highway, and the evenings I wasn't scrubbing sticky tables were spent with my best friend Alinka. Alinka was the complete opposite of my insecurities, bold, carefree, and rich. Her father, Igor Petrovich, owned a chain of car dealerships and a house on the shore of a lake near Minsk, where we would escape in high school. Igor Petrovich was the kind of man who wears suits like armor, with a soft voice, silvery temples, and piercing dark eyes that seem to see right through you. He was silent but always observant. After Alinka's mother died of cancer, Igor Petrovich changed, becoming softer, as if broken, but never weak. There was something about him that drew me in, even when he wasn't talking. I remember the first time he offered to help. I was sitting on the veranda, bursting into tears over a note from my landlady. Alinka was inside, her headphones on full blast. Igor Petrovich came out with a bottle of beer, saw my face, and sat down next to me. "You're drowning, Katyusha," he said. "Let me throw you a life preserver." He paid my rent for that month, then the next. He gave me a used car from one of his dealerships. Then he helped me get a better job as an administrator in his office. That was the beginning of his service. But services from men like Igor Petrovich are never without a catch. One evening after work, I was sorting through papers in his office. My pen fell. I bent over to pick it up. When I straightened up, he was standing behind me. His breath touched my neck. "You're beautiful, Katya," he whispered. I froze. It was the first time he'd said anything like that. I glanced over my shoulder, and his hand was already on my waist. I should have said something, should have pulled away. Instead, I leaned back, let it happen, let him undress me, let him touch me in places I'd kept away for years, and let myself feel it. Damn it, it felt so good. That night, as he kissed the inside of my thighs, erasing every inch of my shame, I knew something had changed between us, but I also felt something dark, dangerous looming, something that would make me question whether I'd ever had control. I wish I could tell you that it was the only time that that night of weakness quietly ended in shame and I walked away unscathed, but the truth is I returned to his embrace again and again. The next morning, Igor Petrovich sent a message, "Come to the dacha, just us, no questions, no apologies, just an order," and I followed him as if hypnotized. At the side entrance, my keys awaited me, a room with clean white linens, a robe that fit me perfectly, and when he touched me again, this time in daylight, it felt even more dangerous. What began as a stolen night turned into weekend getaways. He sent me money, paid for my studies, bought me new clothes, shoes, perfume. He gave me a life I couldn't afford, and I gave him every inch of my body. Alinka suspected nothing. She thought her father was simply helping me get back on my feet. She even joked that I had become like a second daughter to him. If only she knew that her father had learned the taste of my skin. At first, the secret made everything exciting. The risk, the lies, the guilt. I wore it all like perfume. Igor Petrovich said I was special, that I brought him back to life after his wife's death, that with me he felt like a man, not just a grieving father. I believed him, wanted to believe him, but gradually he began to change, became possessive and controlling. He wanted to know who I was texting, where I was going. He no longer liked it when I was around Alinka. "Keep your distance," he said one night, caressing my hair in bed. She asked too many questions. I chuckled, thinking he was being paranoid. But then Alinka asked why I stopped going to their bachelorette parties. She said, "You're acting weird, Katya, like you're hiding something. Are you seeing someone?" I lied, said I was just focused on school and work, that I was tired and didn't have time for guys. She laughed and hugged me. "Just don't you dare try hooking up with my dad or anything like that," she joked. My heart nearly stopped. She had no idea, but guilt rose in my throat like nausea. That night I told Igor Petrovich that we needed to slow down. He looked at me coldly. "After everything I've done for you, after everything I've given you?" His voice was low like a threat wrapped in silk. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a diamond bracelet and put it on my wrist. "Don't leave me, Katya." And I didn't leave, even when my soul screamed to run. And then came the evening when almost everything collapsed. Alinka invited me to dinner, just the three of us. I hadn't seen her for weeks. Igor Petrovich had told me not to come, but I knew if I continued to avoid her, she would suspect something was wrong. I entered the apartment with a nervous tremor, my lips trembling, and there sat Igor Petrovich at the head of the table, acting as if I were just another guest. But under the table, his foot slipped over mine. He stared at me intently, pouring wine into Alinka's glass, his toes barely touching my foot under the table. I almost dropped my fork. Alinka was talking about a guy she met at work, laughing, not noticing how I was shaking. Then she said, "Dad, do you remember that evening when Katya came to help you with the paperwork?" She said, "You worked late. What were you working on there?" My mouth went dry. Igor Petrovich smiled calmly. "Just bills and taxes." Then he looked at me. His dark eyes, his clenched jaw, seemed to challenge me. I nodded and forced a smile, but I felt my lies cracking. One more question, one careless move, the wrong look, and everything would explode. It all came crashing down 2 weeks later. I had just gotten out of the shower at Igor Petrovich's house. My skin still smelled of it. The bracelet he had given me glittered on my wrist as I dried my hair in front of the mirror in his bathroom. I should have felt strong, desired, loved, but all I felt was emptiness. Igor Petrovich was in the next room, half naked, checking his email, as if we were an ordinary couple, as if it were just another morning in a world that never existed outside of this house. I was getting ready. I was about to tell him I couldn't do this anymore, but my phone vibrated. A message from Alinka. "We need to talk." I stared at the screen, my hands shaking. Before I could answer, she called. "Katya," Anna said in a trembling voice. I checked Dad's phone. I saw the messages, the hotel receipts, the photos. "You were in his bed, Katya? You were in my father's bed." Silence. My mouth opened, but no sound came out. No excuses, no lies, no clever ploys, just the naked, brutal truth. "I trusted you," she whispered. "You were my best friend, my sister, and you slept with my father behind my back." Then she hung up. That was the last time I heard Alinka's voice. She blocked my number, posted a cryptic tweet that spread like wildfire through our mutual circle of friends. Everyone started whispering. Rumors turned into screenshots, secrets, condemnation. I lost friends, lost my job, lost the only person who ever made me feel at home. Igor Petrovich changed too. As soon as Alinka found out, he distanced himself like a politician avoiding a scandal, saying we needed time, that he had to protect his reputation, that I should lay low. And then the money stopped, the gifts vanished, no more invitations, no more dachas, no more tender promises in the dark, only silence. He used me and I allowed it, not because I was weak, but because I craved comfort, recognition, love. I was looking in the wrong places. I confused attention with care, lust with affection, and by the time I saw the difference, it was too late. I hit rock bottom a month later, back in the same diner, back collecting tips, no education, no best friend, no name, just shame, but something changed inside me. I turned that shame into fuel. I went back to school, paid every cent myself, found a therapist, found healing. I began telling my story not as a victim, but as a woman who learned the hard way that some services are worth far more than they seem. I never blamed Igor Petrovich, not entirely. He was who he was. But I blame myself for what remained when I should have left, for choosing silence when I should have spoken, for betraying sisterhood for the touch of a man who never saw me as anything other than an escape from his own pain. So that's what I've learned. If someone offers to save you in secret, make sure they're not stealing your soul. If someone gives you everything but demands your silence, ask yourself what you're really paying for, and never ever betray the one person who would fight for you through anything, because the price of lust is nothing compared to the cost of losing yourself. Thanks for watching. Now it's your turn. Tell me what you think. Leave a comment. Share your opinion. Do you think I was wrong from the start? Do you think Igor Petrovich knew exactly what he was doing? Let's talk in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. Your support keeps this channel going, and these stories keep flowing. Until next time, be real. It's been several months since Alinka learned the truth. Several months of silence, dropped phone calls, and feeling like I've been put on display naked for everyone to see. I tried to contact her, writing long messages full of remorse and despair, but all I got in response was silence. My former friends, those with whom we once shared secrets under the starry sky at that very dasha by the lake, now avoided me, casting disdainful glances. Working at the diner became hell. Whispers behind my back, smirks, the feeling of sticky condemnation ingrained in my apron along with the smell of cheap butter. Igor Petrovich, he disappeared from my life as suddenly as he had appeared in it in that fateful capacity. No calls, no messages, only cold indifference, as if I were a fleeting infatuation that could simply be erased from memory. Sometimes I saw his car around town, his old black SUV, and my heart sank painfully, not from love probably, but from the bitter realization of how easily I had been discarded. I tried to pick up the pieces of my life. I returned to my studies at medical college in Zhytomyr. Now I was renting a tiny room on the outskirts, saving on everything, but I felt a strange stubbornness inside, as if I wanted to prove to myself that I could climb out of this hole. One evening, after a grueling shift at the hospital where I work part-time as a nurse, I stopped by a cheap store near my house to buy bread. Standing in line was a woman in an elegant coat, reeking of expensive French perfume. Something in her confident posture, the casual way she held her leather handbag, reminded me, no, not Olinka, but rather that other life I caught a glimpse of with Igor Petrovich, a life full of opportunity, beauty, and carefreeness. Driving lasted only a moment. The woman paid and left, and I was left standing with a bag of stale bread in my hands, feeling even more tired and worthless. That evening I received a strange message on Telegram from an unfamiliar number. Just a link. Curiosity overcame caution, and I clicked it. Some kind of private online club had opened. The interface was dark, with subdued lighting, like an expensive nightclub. Users hid behind nicknames and avatars. They discussed unusual things in the chat, mostly preferences in clothing and accessories. Someone admired the shine of patent leather, someone with the rustle of silk, someone with high stiletto heels. At first, I just watched, trying to understand what was going on. Then someone mentioned a stocking fetish. I remembered those same tights that had slipped down my ankle in Igor Petrovich's office. Something inside me twitched, not shame, more like curiosity. I created a nickname for myself, a siren, and timidly wrote in the chat, "Does anyone like the smell of new leather gloves?" A reply came almost instantly from a user with the nickname Maestro. Ada, this tart, exciting aroma, especially in combination with the thin skin of a woman's hands. We got to talking. Maestro turned out to be an interesting conversationalist with refined taste and a somehow captivating manner of communication. He asked about my preferences, about what excites me. For the first time in a long time, I felt that someone was truly interested in my opinion. One day he asked, "What outfit do you consider the most seductive?" I thought. The burgundy dress Igor Petrovich had once given me popped into my head. Silk, form-fitting with thin straps. I'd never felt so desirable in it. "Probably a silk dress," I wrote. "It's like a second skin, and the scent, The scent of someone else's perfume accidentally lingering can tell a whole story. The maestro replied with a meaningful ellipsis, then sent a private message. You're very observant, Siren. Our online conversations became increasingly frank. He talked about his hobbies, what turned him on. I shared my thoughts and feelings, those I was afraid to say out loud. In this anonymous space, I felt free. One day, the maestro asked to meet. My heart started beating faster. Fear mingled with excitement. Who was behind this nickname? What would he be like in real life? I declined. For now, I needed more time to figure out what I really wanted, to sort myself out after everything that had happened. But the seed of curiosity had been sown, and the scent of someone else's perfume on the silk now seemed more than just a memory, but something alluring, unknown. One evening, while scrolling through the club's feed, I came across a photograph. Someone's hands, clad in thin leather gloves, were carefully unbuttoning a burgundy silk dress. The angle was such that the face was invisible, but something about those hands seemed painfully familiar. My breath caught. I peered at the photograph, trying to discern every detail. It couldn't be. At that very moment, I received a private message from the maestro. Do you like it, Siren? The caption under the photo read, Memories of the Kyiv Spring. My heart skipped a beat. Kyiv, a burgundy dress, leather gloves. I frantically typed a reply. Who is it? The answer didn't come immediately. Minutes dragged on like hours. Finally, a short message from the maestro appeared on the screen. The one who remembers the scent of your perfume on his silk. The world around me swam. It couldn't be him, not after everything. But that description, that mention of Kyiv, I felt an icy chill run down my spine. Could Igor Petrovich really have been somewhere nearby all this time, watching me from the shadows, playing his own twisted game? Suddenly, someone knocked on the door of my tiny room, sharply, insistently. I froze, afraid to move. Who could it be? Late in the evening, after everything that had happened, my heart was pounding so hard it felt like it would burst out of my chest. I slowly approached the door and peered through the peephole. Igor Petrovich stood there. In his hands was a bouquet of my favorite white roses. There was no smile on his face, just some strange, unreadable expression. Katya, he said quietly through the door, we need to talk. My body was frozen with icy dread. Igor Petrovich was standing at the threshold of my squalid little room in Zhitomir. It seemed absurd, impossible after everything that had happened since his cold silence. Why was he here? I silently looked at him through the peephole, feeling my hands tremble. White roses. He remembered my favorite flowers. The gesture was simultaneously touching and terrifying. Katya, please, he repeated. His voice was muffled, with an unfamiliar pleading quality. I slowly opened the door. He stood in the dim light of the stairwell, tall and stately, despite the weariness visible in the folds around his eyes. He held a bouquet in his hands, and his gaze was guilty. What are you doing here, Igor Petrovich? My voice came out sharper than I expected. He handed me the flowers. I wanted to talk. I didn't accept the bouquet. We have nothing to talk about. Katya, please give me a chance to explain. He took a step forward, and the scent of his perfume, the same one from his office, touched me, evoking a strange mixture of nostalgia and disgust. I stepped back. Explain what? How did you betray me? How did you betray Alinka? Pain flashed in his eyes. I know I hurt you, both of us, and I regret it every day. His words sounded sincere, but I couldn't believe it so easily. There had been too many lies between us. Why did you come? I asked again, trying to remain calm. I missed you, he quietly admitted, and that short answer pierced me more deeply than any reproach. He missed me. After all, I let him in. The room was tiny, almost entirely filled with my bed and an old desk. Igor Petrovich looked out of place here, like an expensive painting in a cheap frame. He glanced around and I saw a fleeting flicker of pity in his eyes. It angered me. Don't look at me like that, I said sharply. I'm coping. I know you're strong, Katya. Always have been. He placed the roses on my desk. Their delicate scent filled the room. We were silent for a long time. Finally, Igor Petrovich broke the silence. I saw you in that online club. My heart leapt into my throat. What? Yes, I go there too. Do you know the nickname I go by? Maestro, I whispered, feeling the blood drain from my face. He nodded. I've been watching you. I've seen you write about your feelings, about your hobbies. I felt humiliated, exposed. Were you spying on me? No. I wanted to understand how you live. What's going on with you? Why do you need that? He sighed. I don't know, Katya. Probably because I can't forget you. His confession came unexpectedly, knocking the wind out from under me. I tried to collect my thoughts, but Alinka, I know I've ruined everything. Everything is very complicated with her. There was weariness in his voice. We fell silent again. Tension hung in the air, woven from unspoken words, resentment, something else, an attraction. Despite everything, he suddenly took a step toward me, and I didn't retreat. His hand touched my face gently, almost weightlessly. Goosebumps ran across my skin. You've become even more beautiful, he whispered, and I felt something break inside me. I closed my eyes, letting his touch warm my cheek. The scent of his perfume filled my head, mingling with the delicate scent of roses. For a moment, everything else ceased to exist, just the two of us in this tiny room, separated by the past, but connected by some strange, painful thread. His lips touched mine, lightly, hesitantly, but the touch was enough to awaken long-forgotten feelings in me, desire mixed with guilt. The kiss deepened, more demanding. His hand slid to my waist, pulling me closer. I felt the warmth of his body, the hardness of his muscles. We pulled apart, breathing heavily. Fire burned in his eyes, confusion reflected in mine. I don't know what we're doing, I whispered. I only know one thing, he replied. His voice was hoarse. I can't live without you. He kissed me again, and this time I responded, forgetting everything. Alinka, pain, shame. For a moment, we were back where we once were, in his office, in a world where only our forbidden desires existed. But in the midst of that kiss, through the haze of obsession, I suddenly felt something strange. His hand slid lower down my back and stopped at the small of my back. I felt something hard, hidden under his jacket. My heart began to beat anxiously again. What is it? I pulled back and looked into his eyes. What is that you have? I asked, nodding at the small of his back. He hesitated for a moment, then slowly pulled the handcuffs from under his jacket. I know you like this, he whispered with a strange, pained grin. My mouth dropped open in shock. Handcuffs. How could he know about my secret fantasies? A photo from an online club immediately popped into my head. Hands in leather gloves stretching a burgundy silk dress. The maestro knew, the maestro was watching, and suddenly everything fell into place. His unexpected arrival, his words about missing me, his knowledge of my preferences. I felt not excitement, but icy horror. This no longer seemed accidental. It was planned. You started it, but I couldn't finish it. A mixture of fear and disgust choked me. Igor Petrovich took a step forward, and in his eyes I saw tenderness mingled with something obsessive. Isn't this what you wanted, Katya? He whispered, lifting the handcuffs. At that moment there was another knock on the door, this time loudly, insistently, almost furiously. We both flinched and looked at the door. Who could it be? Igor Petrovich's expression darkened. He wasn't expecting guests. I felt a faint ache. Maybe. The door swung open, and Alinka stood there. Her face was contorted with anger and tears. She was holding my phone in her hands. That's what you sent me, she screamed, throwing the phone on the floor. The screen shattered. She looked at me, then at Igor Petrovich, then back at me. There was so much pain and hatred in her eyes that it seemed she was ready to kill us both. You two, she whispered, her voice breaking. Igor Petrovich tried to say something, but Alinka interrupted him. Don't you dare say anything. She took a step into the room, and her gaze fell on the handcuffs in her father's hand. Her expression changed. Anger gave way to horror, then to some strange, painful understanding. What is this? She asked quietly. Her voice trembled. Igor Petrovich remained silent, his eyes lowered. Alinka turned her gaze to me. There was no longer hatred in her eyes, only a deep, all-consuming sadness. "You too," she whispered, and in that moment I realized that all three of us were trapped in a web of lies, betrayal, and forbidden desires from which there seemed no escape. The silence that fell in the room after Alinka's question was deafening. I couldn't take my eyes off her face, distorted with pain. Igor Petrovich remained silent, like a child caught red-handed, and the handcuffs in his hand now looked less like an intimate detail than like an ominous accusation. Alinka slowly moved her gaze from the handcuffs to me. Her eyes were so full of disappointment that I wanted to sink into the ground. "You too, you liked it too." Her voice trembled. Every word caused her physical pain. I couldn't lie, not now when everything had already collapsed. There was a time, I whispered, looking down. Alinka recoiled as if I'd struck her. "Oh my God, you two!" She shook her head, disbelieving what was happening. My father and my best friend. Tears welled up in her eyes again, but this time there was no hysteria in them, only deep, silent grief. She looked so fragile and broken that my heart sank with guilt. Igor Petrovich finally broke the silence. "Alina, it's not what you think." Alinka turned sharply to him. "No, then what? You came to her pathetic room with flowers and handcuffs? You followed her in some perverted online club? Explain to me, Dad. Explain how you could do this to me, to both of us." Her cry was filled with despair. Igor Petrovich looked confused, unsure of what to say. I took a step forward, trying to somehow smooth things over. "Alinka, listen." But she raised her hand, stopping me. "Don't touch me. Don't talk to me." Her gaze was filled with such hatred as I'd never seen before. She looked at my father again. "And you? I thought we became closer after Mom died. I thought you were my protector. And you?" She faltered, unable to find the words. "You're just disgusting." With these words, she turned and ran out of the room, slamming the door so hard the glass rattled. Igor Petrovich and I were left standing in the middle of my squalid room, stunned by her departure. Silence reigned again, but now it was heavy, oppressive. Igor Petrovich lowered the handcuffs. His face was ashen. "I ruined everything," he muttered. I remained silent. What could I say? He really had ruined everything, ruined a friendship, broken his daughter's heart. He trampled my feelings into the dirt. He looked at me. There was despair in his eyes. "Katya, you understand, right?" "No, Igor Petrovich," I answered firmly. "I don't understand anything. How could you?" He tried to approach me, but I retreated. The anger I'd suppressed for so long finally burst forth. "You said you cared about me. You said I was special. And what happened? You just used me. You lied to me. You lied to Alinka. You ruined everything." Tears poured from my eyes. I felt devastated, betrayed to the depths of my soul. Igor Petrovich looked at me with pain. "It's not true. Enough!" I screamed. "Just go away. Go away and leave us alone." He nodded silently, picked up Alinka's broken phone from the floor and placed it on my desk. Then he looked at the bouquet of white roses, which now seemed to me a symbol of lies and manipulation. Without a word, he left the room. I heard the front door slam. I was left alone in the midst of this chaos of dashed hopes and ruined relationships. Tears streamed down my face. I felt as broken as Alinka's phone screen. Several days passed. Alinka didn't reply to my messages. I knew she would never forgive me. Our friendship, so strong I thought, crumbled to dust because of my stupidity and his selfishness. Igor Petrovich had disappeared too. No calls, no attempts to talk, as if none of this had ever happened. I felt completely alone. I had returned to my old life, but now it seemed even more empty and meaningless. Work, school, a rented room, all of it lost all meaning without Alinka. One evening, scrolling through the feed of that very online club, I saw a new message from the maestro, just ellipsis. I stared at this symbol of incompleteness for a long time. What did he mean? Had he tried to contact me? Me? Conflicting feelings warred within me. Anger, resentment, grief, a kind of morbid curiosity curiosity. I didn't answer. I'd had enough of secrets and lies. I needed to move on, build my life anew without him and without Alinka. But a few weeks passed, and one day I received a strange letter in the mail, no return address. Inside was only one item, a thin leather glove, a man's, the very one I'd seen in the photo in the online club. My heart began to beat faster. Who sent me this? Igor Petrovich. Why? Along with the glove, there was a small folded piece of paper in the envelope. On it was written just one word, written in familiar handwriting, soon. What did this mean? What was he up to? I felt a chill run down my spine. This story wasn't over yet, and something told me that the next meeting would be completely different from the last one. That same evening I had a strange dream. I stood on the shore of that very lake near Minsk where Alinka and I were once happy. But the water in the lake was black and murky, and a tall figure in a dark coat was rising from the depths. She held white roses and handcuffs in her hand. I woke up in a cold sweat, my heart pounding. A sense of doom gripped my chest. What awaited me next? What new game was Igor Petrovich playing? And would I ever be able to regain Alinka's trust? After receiving the letter with the glove and the ominous word, I soon lived in a kind of sticky anticipation. Every phone call made me shudder. Every knock on the door seemed like a harbinger of something inevitable. I tried to convince myself it was just someone's stupid joke, but the icy terror inside me told me otherwise. I told my new acquaintance, a medical student in Lena's parallel class, about the letter. She was reasonable and practical. Lena advised me to go to the police, but I hesitated. The very thought of dredging up the past, of exposing my shameful relationship with my best friend's father, seemed unbearable. Instead, I tried to focus on my studies and my work at the hospital, caring for the sick, their suffering. All of this distracted me from my own torment for a while, but in the evenings, returning to my lonely room, I again plunged into anxious thoughts. About a week had passed since receiving the letter. One evening, as I was returning home after a night shift, I noticed a strange car parked not far from my house, a dark SUV, similar to the one Igor Petrovich had driven. My heart began to pound. I quickened my pace, trying not to look in his direction. When I was almost to the entrance, the car window rolled down. Katya, a familiar voice rang out. It was him, Igor Petrovich. I stopped, feeling a wave of anger and fear rise inside me. "What do you want?" I asked sharply. He got out of the car. In the streetlight, his face looked tired and drawn. "I wanted to talk. We have nothing to talk about," I repeated his words. "Please, Katya, just a few minutes." There was a note of desperation in his voice. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to just turn around and leave, but curiosity and some kind of morbid attraction to this man still lived within me. I nodded. "Speak." He came closer. In his hand I noticed a small velvet case. "I know I hurt you. Both of you," he began. "I can't fix it, but I wanted to give you something." He opened the case. Inside was an elegant silver bracelet with a small key pendant. "This is from my house on the lake," he explained. "I wanted you to have a symbol of that time." Despite everything, I silently stared at the bracelet. A symbol of what? Betrayal, lies, a broken friendship. "I don't need this," I said, feeling bitterness rising inside. He didn't insist, closed the case and put it back in his pocket. "I know Alinka will never forgive me," he said quietly. "I deserve it." We fell silent again. Tension hung in the air. I felt he wanted to say something else, but he hesitated. Finally, he sighed. "I'm leaving. I was surprised. Where? Far away. I need to be alone, to sort everything out. I didn't know what I was feeling. Relief, sadness, indifference. "Okay," I said. He looked at me with a long farewell gaze. I saw remorse and something else in his eyes, something dark and disturbing. "Take care, Katya," he whispered and turned to leave. He was almost to the car when he suddenly stopped. Slowly, he turned around. He had the handcuffs in his hand again. "I still haven't figured it out. You actually enjoyed it." His voice sounded almost like a plea. I was silent, unsure what to say. Yes, there had been a time when forbidden intimacy with him had seemed exciting, thrilling, but now it only evoked shame and disgust. It was a mistake, I finally said. It had all been a mistake. He nodded, his face darkened, turned away again, and got into the car. The SUV pulled away and quickly disappeared from sight. I was left standing on the sidewalk, feeling empty. He was gone. Alinka hates me. I was alone again, but a strange premonition wouldn't leave me. Something in his parting glance, that last question about the handcuffs, seemed wrong. Returning to my room, I picked up Alinka's broken phone, which was lying on the table. The screen was cracked, but it still worked. Out of curiosity, I tried it, turned it on. The gallery loaded. Among the random photos, I suddenly spotted one. It was obviously taken secretly. It depicted Igor Petrovich. He was sitting at his desk in his office, but that wasn't what caught my attention. On his wrist, I clearly saw the same silver bracelet with a key he'd tried to give me. My heart skipped a beat. What did this mean? Why would he need a bracelet like that? I started scrolling through the other photos and found several more. In some of them, Igor Petrovich wasn't alone. There were other girls next to him, young ones. Some of them reminded me of me, and on the wrist of each of them was the same silver bracelet with a key. A terrible thought pierced my mind. What if I wasn't the only one? What if all these favors, all these your special things were just part of some sinister game? Suddenly a new photo appeared on my phone screen, apparently taken very recently. It was of Alinka. She was sleeping, and on her wrist I saw a familiar silver bracelet with a key. I broke out in a cold sweat. What did he do to her? Where did she disappear to after our conversation? At that moment, someone knocked on my door, this time quietly, almost inaudibly. I froze, afraid to move. Who could it be? Igor Petrovich had left. Alinka hates me. Who else could come to me so late? The door slowly opened and Lena appeared on the threshold. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with terror. She held her phone in her hand. "Katya, you have to see this," she whispered in a trembling voice and handed me her phone. Some social media site was open on the screen. Alinka's latest post, a photograph. It showed her lying on the bed. On her wrist was that same silver bracelet, and next to her lay Igor Petrovich, unconscious, and in his hand he clutched an empty bottle of sleeping pills. Under the photo was the caption, "Now we will be together forever." My scream caught in my throat. What happened? What did Alinka do? Lena grabbed my hand. "We have to call the police immediately." But I couldn't move. That terrible photograph was before my eyes. Alinka, Igor Petrovich, the bracelet, and suddenly I remembered his last question. "Did you really like it?" Now I understood. It wasn't a question, it was a confession. He knew that I too was part of his collection, and now perhaps Alinka had decided to put an end to this once and for all. But what had become of her? Was she safe, or did that eerie inscription, "Forever Together," signify something far more terrifying? At that moment I noticed something else in Alinka's photograph. On the nightstand next to the bed lay a small velvet case, the same one in which Igor Petrovich had shown me the bracelet, but this one was open, and inside I saw another silver bracelet with a key. But this key looked different. It was broken. What did that mean? What secret did this broken key hide? And what awaits us all next?